Well, good evening, everybody, and great. I'm happy to see all your smiling faces out there. As I was just commenting a little bit ago, a few names popping in here that I'm familiar with, but they you haven't been here for a little bit. And welcome back for this. Well, I hope it's going to be a real neat show tonight. I am going solo again tonight because Mel is out teaching people how to drown in a lake. No, she's actually teaching them how not to drown in a lake. Uh, so if you go past Lake Redmond and all down the south of York and you see people flopping around in the water, don't get excited. It's just York County Parks seasonal staff learning how to rescue people. So anyway, that's where she's at tonight. So we're going solo. So you all remember the Chinese balloons that flew over the United States some time ago? It created a lot of news items. I thought I saw one the other day. I saw this white spot, and I actually followed it for like 5 miles, and then I realized it was bird poop on my windshield. Uh, so I wasted 5 miles of gas to get there. So, all right, we're gonna get started with the intro part here tonight, and all right, so yep, here we go. Another edition of the Zoom Rock Room, and we're going to give you some entertainment tonight, hopefully, and give you a little knowledge. And uh, thank you for your responses. It's about your favorite East Coast geology site. And I shouldn't really say geology site, I say vacation site. And we're going to give you a little geology about that. So, always sponsored by Lair Architect in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, Paul and Marcella Lair. Their logo is designed for the future. And I do appreciate we do have a room member who corresponded this week with Paul, and I got this. I was shared those correspondence, and it was really neat. I actually learned some things about my cousin I did not know through that communication. So you know who you are out there that did write a nice email and information. So say hi to Paul Marcel Lair at lairarchitecture@yahoo.com. And of course, our friend Andrew Epic, the Dirt Man reports. Andrew's has himself a lot of responsibilities going on. And Andrew, you want to tell everybody right now, if you would, if you can, what's going to happen to you this weekend?
Sorry about that. I wasn't prepared. Yes, I will be in Sterling Hill, New Jersey, at the EFMLS convention, and I will be, being elected with the rest of the new board, along with Brittany Martin as second VP. I will be president of the EFMLS, and Matt Charsky will be first VP. So we'll be electing a new board. Bill Stevens will be moving out, and I'll be moving in. And yeah, we'll go from there. So I'll be bringing new things and new cool, awesome things to all the clubs across the East Coast. I have a big agenda planned, and it's gonna be great. I'll still be bringing Dirtman reports to the Zoom Rock Room. No worries.
You probably have a lot more resources to do that now if you're going to go out and visit certain clubs at certain areas and all that.
My schedule is so busy as it is. I don't know how I'm gonna fit it all in, but we'll figure it out.
Okay. Yep, as Andrew says, bringing the geology to you on YouTube and the social media pages. So thank him for doing all that. The Buttonwood Nature Center in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. Educate, inspire, and unite. And if you've not been here for a little while, they changed their name officially in early April to Buttonwood Nature Center. It was the institute for a couple of years, and they officially now announced the Buttonwood Nature Center with their new property that they are actually already starting to improve, like building a bridge into the property that's safe for buses to go across. And of course, they are still doing their capital campaign. So if you haven't uh, given any money to the Buttonwood Nature Center, you're not too late. Just go to their website or the Facebook page and read about how you can give financially or be another supporter if you're in the area to volunteer at the Buttonwood Nature Center with Director Tracy Holliday and her staff. In a couple of weeks, Youth Archaeology Week is going to be taking place up in the Dillsburg area. So if you have any grandchildren, children, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders looking for something to do during the June 17th week, it's going to be happening just outside of the Dillsburg borough, east of town. And that Thursday night, which is the 21st, at I have to double check it. I think it's at 6:30. There's going to be a public program for anybody to come out and see what the students are unearthing. It's a brand new site. We have never done archaeology here. The property owner's done a lot of collecting herself on the surface. They give us an idea of what she's been finding and where. So come on out and on that Thursday night and see what the students are finding. So Northern York Historical.org is the website for the Northern York County Historical and Preservation Society. Red Line Telescopes, Wade Kraut. See Wade's getting into astrophotography, which is getting to be a much, much easier thing to do these days with the new technology for telescopes and actually telescopes with cameras built into them, and you don't really have to it's kind of turning into be a kind of an easy thing to do these days. But Wade's been out actually doing some astrophotography and getting some fabulous pictures of various objects. But he has good starting telescopes available right up to, and he can get any professional type of telescope that you might want, whatever you're looking for. The Zoom Rock Room schedule, it's kind of like going to be mostly here all summer. Okay. And next time we see you, which actually will be Tuesday of Archaeology Week, fossils in Pennsylvania. July 2nd, we're hoping for the owner of Coral Caverns and outside of Bedford and in Bedford County to do a program on the Coral Caverns itself. July 16th is going to be a night off. There's actually a geology hike taking place at a new Schuylkill County park called Frog Hollow near Pine Grove that I will be doing. But July 16th will be I say a vacation night. August 6th, we're going to talk about the meteorites in Pennsylvania, the ones that have been found. And then August 20th, who was the Trias Swainer? And get back in September, we'll be hitting up some other academic faculty for some of the programs. Right now, the college faculty, as you know, they are out doing field work and things that they enjoy doing, or doing summer school with some geology students. So they're actually pretty busy at this point. Also, coming up this weekend, Cador State Park in Hanover, Pennsylvania creates and will be presenting their third annual ECO, as they call it, Experience Cador's Outdoors. It's Saturday and Sunday this year, no Friday. So Saturday from 11 to 6, Sunday from 11 to 5. There is an admission fee by person or by carload, and that pays for everything to do at ECO except to buy your food. So if you want to come down and Jones Geological will have a fossil pit that you can come and collect fossils. That's open really to anybody, adults and kids. And there'll be a rock wall there you can climb. There's going to be a planetarium, reptiles, butterflies, all kind of cool things going on. So it's a really neat event put on by the Friends of Cador State Park and Cador State Park themselves. We want to recognize a gentleman who's been in our room, I think, twice in our history of a Zoom Rock Room. His name is Vincent Santucci. You might remember him. He's done fossils in the national parks for us, and for one thing. And Vincent been with the national parks since 1985, I believe it is. He just had a fossil named after him. Uh, so Vince Santucci is called Santucci Murex. It's a very small, 32 million year old. They actually nickname it I believe a horse mouse. It's not very large at all. In fact, Madison and Ed are holding the one and only skull of that fossil in their hands right there. Found out west, and they named it after Vince. And that's actually, Vince actually got his start with the national parks out west. So he resides in Gettysburg now. But anyway, really tickled pink to have his fossil named after Vince Santucci. So I did invite him to be in here tonight to recognize him, but his schedule usually is in the summer. He's usually out there in the middle of nowhere in the summer months, places where you and I usually can't go, doing some kind of research. So that's our introduction for tonight. I do want to pass some information on to you also that I did not include in the intro because I just found out about this. Is that you might remember last month, RJ Harris of WHP Radio and the Central Pennsylvania Rock and Mineral Club did recognize the passing of Ed Charles. Andrew, of course, is the president of the Central Pennsylvania Rock and Mineral Club, and of course knew Ed very well and did a video on Ed and his collection. I found out now that Ed's collection is going to be auctioned off. We don't know by one of the two auctioneers that are being considered. So we're not going to give you a location at this point where it's going to be, but it is going to be auctioned off by a professional auctioneer because it's a very large collection. It's a very valuable collection. Andrew will testify, and if you saw his video on Ed Charles, that Ed didn't really have any junk in his collection. Beautiful minerals, beautiful fossils. His trilobites are ones that could belong to the Smithsonian Institute very easily. But I do know that the process is starting to catalog. All the minerals actually are cataloged. Fossils are not cataloged. That's where I will be probably getting involved in that part. But like I said, there will be a professional auctioneer that will be setting up an auction very similar to, and most of you probably don't remember this. A number of years ago, we had another mineral collector, Jay Loniger, pass away, who had a exceptional mineral collection, and they had a 2-day sale in Gettysburg with his stuff. So I'll keep you informed as that does roll along, sort of thing. I've had several inquiries from you folks about what was going to be the future of Ed Charles' collection. So anyway, I will keep you in tune with what's going on there. So one more announcement. I'm going to email this out to you because then you'll have the link. I've talked about it a couple of times in the past because it's been in the works for over a year and a half or maybe 2 years. But there's a brand new geological map out of what we call South Mountain. If you don't know where South Mountain is, we're talking about areas like Pine Grove Furnace, Caledonia State Park, Point South down on the Maryland line around Blue Ridge Summit. And that new research has been released now. There is a map online on the Pennsylvania Geologic Survey. In fact, if you go to the Pennsylvania Geologic Survey's homepage and you'll see what's new listing, you'll see May 2024, the South Mountain Geology. And I know there's several people in here who are acquainted with the geology of South Mountain, and you may want to refer to that map because I have to change my vocabulary all around because we're not using the word, for example, metarhyolates not being used anymore. It's rhyolite, okay? And the Catoctin Formation barely exists in Pennsylvania anymore. It's a brand new formation and member. So anyway, I'll send that link out to everybody. And if you want to check it out, please do so. Okay. Does anybody have any announcements in this group since I got through there pretty fast? You got anything you want to spread? All right. If not, we're gonna go on. We're gonna do our program tonight. And again, I thank you much for your input as we got a lot of responses from you folks on locations. I actually had to learn something. But some were easy and some were gee whiz. I don't know much about this one. Anyway, I did alter my program a little bit to make time for your locations. I don't want to keep you more than 3 hours tonight. But yeah, I did take some of mine out because we've already talked about Gettysburg or whatever. So anyway, the top 5 most popular tourist attractions in the country now. In the country, okay? And we don't have numbers. This is just a poll that was taken. So what was number 5? Niagara Falls. You might have thought that might have been higher, right? Number 4, the Golden Gate Bridge. I would never put Golden Gate Bridge as number 4. In fact, I probably wouldn't have the Golden Gate Bridge in the top 5 at all myself, but I didn't do the poll. Yellowstone National Park, sure. Everybody wants to go see Old Faithful and hopefully that the super volcano goes off when they're there. Manhattan. Okay, would I put that in the top 5 myself again? Probably not, but figures don't lie. And you have probably already figured out the number 1 attraction in the country is the Grand Canyon. So why do people go to the Grand Canyon? They go to look at rocks. You know, they don't admit that, but yeah, that's what they're looking at, right? So, as you know, I did a little spot from the Grand Canyon last November for the Zoom Rock Room, and only one other person in the room probably knew I was going to be doing that, and that was Melanie. So we got to see the Grand Canyon. You know what my wife's response to seeing the Grand Canyon was after a day and a half? I've seen it. Don't need to come back. So we'll see what happens. Okay, we're going to start off with some locations. And these are not in any particular order. We kind of bounce up and down the eastern part of the United States, sort of thing. But the arrow might give you a little clue. You can be stepping ahead of me if you are paying attention. Of course, we're going to talk about Niagara Falls, okay? And awesome sight. You know, it's like going to the Grand Canyon. It's always just awesome to see. The first time I've seen the Niagara Falls in a long time, and my wife's first time ever seeing the Niagara Falls a few wintertime. everything was all iced up. I mean, the water was going over the falls, but it was all the water laying on the rocks with ice and everything else. That's quite different. So beautiful Niagara Falls, and basically, Niagara Falls is not really high. Uh, there's 500 plus waterfalls higher than Niagara. 6 million cubic feet of water a minute go over the falls. 68 miles an hour. Of course, it's the corridor between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, made up of limestone and shale. And then here lies the problem. Okay, limestone and shale are soft rocks. They weather away very quickly, and they are abraded very quickly by water. So as I'm going to show you in the slide here coming up, Niagara Falls has been receding upstream forever, and it's going to keep doing that. Okay, created by the Ice Age, starting about 14,000 years ago. Right there it is. Falls have eroded upstream at least 7 miles in the last 12,500 years. So it's moving upstream about 1 foot a year today. So, and in 15,000 years from now, it will be not a falls. It will be a rapids area. Actually, it's going to hit another type of rock upstream, and it's not going to allow it to be a waterfall. It's going to be a rapids. So, so there's a kind of a profile. If you've not been to Niagara Falls, it's worth a couple-day trip. I believe the Canadian side is better than the United States side, but there's also things to do on the North American side, like for example the Cave of the Winds. Okay, if you're on the island, Goat Island, make sure you do the Cave of the Wind tour. It really lets you sense the power of the water. It really does. And here's the migration upstream of the American Falls. This is the Horseshoe Falls. 1678 down here, 2005 up here. So it's, as I said, migrating upstream. And there's a picture. I believe that's probably off the observation tower on the Canadian side. Of course, you need to have your passport to get into the Canadian side. And the Maid of the Mist boat ride, that's another incredible view. When they tell you to put your raincoats on, put your raincoats on. There's a reason for that, folks. Okay. All right, we're going to skip way down to Florida. And of course, people that are acquainted with Florida, you know that the central part particularly is sinkhole heaven. There's all kind of reasons for the sinkholes because of the limestone. The phosphate companies are pumping out millions of gallons of water out of the ground a day for their phosphate processing. And that water is leaving voids in the ground. And just like anything above ground, the subsurface will collapse, not being held up by the water anymore. This particular sinkhole actually happened north of Tampa. I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. Actually, a gentleman lost his life in his house that fell in the sinkhole, and during the night he was in bed, and he was never recovered. So that's what these engineers are looking at there. But go to the Devil's Mill Hopper in Gainesville, Florida. It's in the 3A's book. That's how we found it. That's how my wife really found it. In Gainesville, it's a beautiful sinkhole. Has steps and stairway going down to the bottom. There you go. And it's interesting that there's like 3 ecosystems within this sinkhole. It's so deep. There's actually three habitats, 3 ecosystems that are surviving, basically the plants, the animals. There is water in the bottom there, obviously. And it's no longer an active sinkhole, but it actually is a state park. Devil's Millhopper State Park. 120 feet deep. The sinkhole is 500 feet wide. And there's 238 steps if you did not count them if you were there. So count them on the way down. It's easier to count down than it is come back up because you're getting out of breath. So check out Devil's Millhopper in Florida, in Gainesville, particularly. And we're going to move to Georgia, in north central Georgia. And how many of you have been to Stone Mountain, Georgia? It's the largest outcrop of granite in the world, folks. And the reason it's there is because everything else around it, which was soft, sedimentary rocks like shale, sandstone, all eroded and weathered away. And the granite much harder, and it now protrudes above the surface, making it a very obvious structure. We call that a dome. We're going to be hearing that word again a little bit later of another domed structure on the East Coast. So it doesn't matter. Here we go. Here's an absolute beautiful picture of a dome. You're going up to a central high point. Whichever way you go, you're climbing to a central high point, and that's a dome. It was pushed up like a pimple in its creation. So anyway, Stone Mountain is again a really cool place to go. And to get to the top, you have two options. You may take the cable car up, or you may do what I do because I don't like riding cable cars. You walk about a mile up the one side of Stone Mountain to the top. And when we were there, my beautiful wife, she was awaiting me at the top of the mountain with a Milky Way candy bar. I appreciated that. On the top of the mountain, they have these potholes, like you see around around lakes, streams, where water erodes the rock out. And even I said, wait a minute, there's no water up here. How can they form? And then somebody actually told me the truth of how those potholes got there. From lightning strikes. Lightning hits the rock and blows the rock out. So that was kind of fascinating. I knew not to be up there during a thunderstorm. Largest base relief in the world of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis are carved on the side. In the summer months, like right now, at nighttime, they actually have a laser show that they do around the base relief. It's been in the news, not recently, but it was in the news just before COVID. People who believing that this needs to be leaving. We can't have that on the side of the rock representing the Confederates. Okay, hopping up to my home state of North Carolina, where I went to school. Not too far from here, the Reed Gold Mine, Midland, North Carolina. It's actually northeast of Charlotte, not real far. In fact, anybody who's a NASCAR fan, when you go to Charlotte Motor Speedway, you're very, very close to the Reed Gold Mine, which is now a public, or actually a state-owned property. They have this beautiful museum that they built. There's the ore car in front of you. And it was actually a gold mine commercially started in 1802. 1802. When was the gold rush in California? I believe that was 1849. Oh, this is way before California, folks. And the way that if you've not heard the story from me, in Little Meadow Creek on the property of the Reed Gold Mine, 12-year-old Conrad Reed found a rock in the creek that looked rather suspicious on a Sunday morning when his parents were not home. He took it up to the house. When Dad and Mom came home, he showed it to Dad, and Dad said, it's just a rock out of the creek. And Later on down the road, after a couple of years of using it as a backdoor stop, they did have a visitor. He was a gemologist from Fayetteville, North Carolina, that came and saw the rock down there. He picked it up, looked at it. He said, "You care if I take this back and show and analyze it?" He did. That rock had 3 ounces of gold in it. So Mr. Reed then opened up the Reed Gold Mine. Okay, and the biggest nugget discovered. They have a replica of it in the museum. 24-pound nugget of gold found right here in the Reed Gold Mine. First commercial gold mine in the United States, folks. Moving to Virginia, one of my favorite places. Natural Bridge, considered on the original seven wonders of the world list. Natural Bridge was created by underground stream, and also involved a collapse of a cave in limestone, obviously. And George Washington did sign the rock over here on this side that you can't get to. That's why it's still there. And actually, you may or may not know it, but if you drive down Route 11 between the two Natural Bridge exits off of Interstate 81, you drive across the Natural Bridge. Right there is Route 11. You will not really know you crossed the bridge. There's no signage up there saying bridge right below you. But obviously, it's a very popular thing. In the old days, it actually was a private enterprise. They were charging $24, $26 to get in. I don't know, probably could have been maybe 10 years ago. Natural Bridge became a state park for Virginia. And I think the last time we were there, admission was only $9. And in fact, you most of you have not met my wife, but there is Lou Ann. If you go under the bridge and follow the trail further out, there's an Indian village. Of course, that's mock, but there's actually a real saltpeter mine where they took saltpeter out. The Lost River, you can put your head into the opening to a cave and you can hear the water going past, but you can't see it. And they don't really know where that Lost River goes. There's some really beautiful outcrops of limestone along the way. If you're in the area, I get paid for telling you this. No, I'm just kidding. At the northernmost Natural Bridge exit, if you get down off the exit, heading south, and instead of turning left to go to the Natural Bridge, if you turn right, go about a quarter of a mile, you'll see a place called the Pink Cadillac Restaurant. And you folks like Elvis Presley, they play Elvis Presley music and have Elvis Presley memorabilia. And it's actually very, very good food. And there's a Natural Bridge Cavern, which last time I was in the cavern, I said, this is the best cavern I've ever been to. It's not been trampled down like some other commercial caves have been. And, it's not as big as Luray Caverns, but the formations are pretty spectacular. That's right up the road from the bridge. So if you're not acquainted with the other caverns, Dixie, Grotto, Endless, Skyland, and Skyline, and Luray Caverns are the other caverns in the Shenandoah Valley. So you can spend a couple days going up and down 81, stopping at caverns. Okay, by popular request. Some of you had a request in for the Acadia area. And with one addition here coming up, Acadia National Park had it all. Up in Maine. Okay, very close to Bar Harbor area. It has sedimentary rocks, it has igneous rocks, it has metamorphic rocks. And it shows you the history of volcanic activity. It shows you the history of plate tectonics. Shows you glacial activity and water erosion that started 500 million years ago and actually continues today with the beating of the Atlantic Ocean against the rock. So a lot of cool geology there. And in fact, there is a book written about the geology of Acadia National Park, if you want more in detailed activity. Place called Thunder Hole, where the tide comes in through the hole of some volcanic rock here, through the hole, and makes it, as it says, thunder, which is actually very, very loud. So you want to talk about water erosion? This is one of the extremes. So make sure you visit Thunder Hole when you're at Acadia National Park. The glacial activity, here's the U-shaped valley. The U-shaped valley, oftentimes, if you're in a glacial area, will tell you that that valley was etched out by the glaciers, ice sheet moving down through the valley. And some of this rock, as in this case, some of the granitic rocks, do have striations on them from the ice moving across the bedrock, or could be actually a rock being carried by the glaciers scraping across bedrock also, but showing you the direction that the ice did move. Erratics, these are large rocks, not really large, they can be any size, but some large rocks have been moved by the ice, brought down from Canada, Pennsylvania. We have erratics up in northern Pennsylvania that came from New York State or even Canada. They are brought down by the ice. The ice melts, and the erratics are just put in place, just like this one right here. If you go to Acadia National Park, you do want to certainly get up and see one of the earliest sunrises in the United States. So this is this is the furthest east point in the country, Cadillac Mountain. See the sun come up. That's a must see. We had a request for a place called Mount Desert Island, which is right here is obviously Acadia National Park. Mount Desert Island is just north of there. The geology is very, very similar. You see the satellite photographs, you see the elongated lakes. These are the valleys gouged out by the glaciers. Okay. So the ice was moving from top to bottom in this case. So Mount Desert Island, I've never been to Mount Desert Island, but a geological map. All these good words over here. There's granite. There's a gabbro diorite. Gabbro is an intrusive igneous rock. In other words, it did not make it to the surface as lava, but did solidify into a intrusive rock. More granite. Bar Harbor Formation is some sedimentary rock. Here's a metamorphic rock and more granite. So you can see that there's an assortment of rock material on Mount Desert Island. And here's a picture I found of Mount Desert Island. And I was reading that there's a lot of hiking opportunities on Mount Desert Island. Obviously, this is one that looks like you need to be walking to. Seeing one of these U-shaped valleys, glaciated valley right there. So have fun at Mount Desert Island when you go there. All right, coming down, we're going to hit the beach. Talk about the beach a little bit. And again, we had some requests for various beaches up and down, pretty much in the mid-Atlantic states. So when I talk about Cape Hatteras, it's going to all get tied together because it's pretty much all the same, okay, up and down the coast. So Cape Hatteras, of course, famous for the lighthouses and the cool motels you can stay in. You get some nice sunrises and sunsets, obviously looking the other direction. And all this is a barrier island. A barrier island is land composed of sand that separates the ocean from the mainland. And the sound is usually found on the mainland side. So, in other words, on this satellite photo, this is a sound. The ocean's out here. And what you see white, that's the barrier island. That is made up of nothing more than sand. Somebody who actually uh, sent me their choice, I think of the Delmarva Peninsula, said that it's just sand. Well, it is. And obviously, a super large flood, hurricane storm could very easily wipe out the barrier island or parts of it. It's very easy to do, as in this case right here. What happened at the Outer Banks number of years ago, where the ocean water just came went right through. And again, there's very little topographical relief there. Um, the water doesn't have to rise too high to cut through and destroy the road system and even the houses. So here's your test question tonight. I'm just kidding. But up and down the coast, we have all these structures. Okay, the Cosput foreland is a piece of land that is kind of jetting out like this in a like an arch shape. Tombolo is a little tongue of sediment sticking out. These little knobs here are called spits. And there's a bay here that you've heard of, a bay. And back here's a lagoon, has the barrier island in front. So the wave action is not really getting so much back into the lagoon. It's kind of quiet water because the water only has these little channels here to go back into the lagoon and barrier island. So they're found from Maine to Georgia. Okay, Jekyll Island, for example, in Georgia. Just trying to think of some others down there. A spit is Cape May, New Jersey, is a spit. That's all it is. At a tombolo is the Cape Cod up in Massachusetts. So here's Cape May here, as in a spit. Delaware Bay, right there. But like I said, its biggest fear is a major storm. The more vegetation that the area has, the more stable it might stay. All right. And of course, Cape Hatteras, picture my wife took. Of course, Kitty Hawk, where the Wright brothers flew their first plane. That's pretty neat to go to. And actually, I had thrown this in. These two people are college mates of mine. This is Eric Poplin. He's an archaeologist in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, right across the river from Charleston. There's a lot of archaeology in the Charleston area. And this is actually Dee Dee. Shoot, I just lost her last name. Dee Dee, and she actually grew up in the Enola area outside of Harrisburg on a farm. And we all were, of course, archaeology prone type of people at Catawba College. So when we get to Charleston, I try to get together with at least Eric. Dee Dee is now actually retired from the teaching at the University of Charleston. Okay, let's go to the New England states, New Hampshire. And where do you want mountains? In New Hampshire, and there's a big structure on top of the mountain. Anybody want to guess in your own mind where we're looking at? It has a railroad going up the mountain. Mount Washington. Okay. Yep, Mount Washington. Not the highest elevation on the East Coast. It's not. I'll tell you that in a second. So Mount Washington, let me move something down my way there. Yep, so Mount Washington, New Hampshire. I was there one time many, many years ago. Has an elevation of 6,268 feet above sea level. The highest point is actually down in North Carolina, the highest mountain called Mount Mitchell, which is over 6,600 feet in elevation. But Mount Washington does have Mount Washington does have a 400 million-year-old granite making up the mountain. Part of the White Mountains and the Green Mountains in New Hampshire. Of course, the on top of the mountain is the weather station that is really, really phenomenal. In 1934, they recorded a 231-mile-an-hour wind, which was broken in 2010, by the way, as the strongest wind gust in the world. And I was at that weather station back in the mid 1960s. We took the Cog Railroad up the mountain, and I did visit the weather station. It was actually obviously in the summertime. I forget the statistics though, but top of Mount Washington, there's out of the 365 days out of the year, there's like 340 are cloudy that you really can't see. So anyway, Mount Washington's a place to go. There's the Cog Railroad. If you're afraid of heights, elevations, yep, just don't look out. It's like a 12-mile drive with your car if you want to drive up to Mount Washington. So anyway, the Cog Railroad's a neat place, neat way to get to the top. Again, we have glacial valleys around Mount Washington. Here's a Cirque. When we did some glacial programs with Brittany Martin, she talked about cirques that are actually eroded out into the close to the mountaintop where the start of a glacier is. So we have those presents around Mount Washington. I know several people also requested North Cornwall, New Hampshire, which is basically the same area as we're talking about right here. Okay, moving to Maryland. We didn't put Maryland in here yet. Vacation spot? Yeah, it could be. Go to Calvert Cliffs, Maryland. Calvert Cliffs State Park, because there's all kind of neat fossils there to be found. Fairly recent fossils compared to what we find in Pennsylvania, for example, or New York. They contain fossils dating between 5 and 12 million years old. If you wherever you're collecting, you know, we've had the Calvert Museum in our Zoom rock room doing a program one time on some of the fossils unearthed in these cliffs. Calvert Cliffs, actually the northernmost cliffs are right outside of Chesapeake, Maryland. You can actually go to just south of Chesapeake, Maryland, and visit the cliffs. I believe they call that Bummy's Beach, I believe is the name of it. And you can find the same fossils there, which are like a half hour north of Calvert Cliffs. So all kind of cool fossils: cow shark, great white tiger. You can find vertebrae, porpoise, inner ear bones, which are curlicues as I call them, crocodile teeth and bones, and of course shells, barnacles. And what's really nice about it here in the summertime, take a little screen with you, and you can actually stand right out in the water and dig up the sand off the bottom and put the sand in your screen, shift it around a little bit, and find your fossils. Of course, the real big stuff, I do understand, are getting tougher and tougher to find, and you almost need some kind of boat to be offshore diving for them. But there's still a lot of stuff within those cliffs, I guarantee you. Ever try to get two kids to hold the moon? Or did you ever try to land on the moon with a parachute? That's a little bit of humor, just a little bit. New York State. What are we going to throw in there beside the Niagara Falls? Oh, the Finger Lakes. And maybe some of you have been to the Finger Lakes. known for their wineries. Okay. And the Watkins Glen area, which is coming up here very soon. How were the Finger Lakes created? Well, by glaciers again. Notice the elongation of these U-shaped valleys. Each one of these has a lake name attached to them, and they were carved out by the ice that came down out of Canada across northern New York State. And I believe this is actually where Watkins Glen is over here. So, yep, Finger Lakes are a great place to go. As I said, there's full wineries is what they are really known for. Watkins Glen, New York. Uh, Beautiful glen. Again, uh, carved out by the glaciers. And in fact, the Watkins Glen was just in the news last week. They had a kind of a moderately dangerous rock slide happen along the trail that the Glen got shut down. I think just overnight. They got it cleaned up overnight. But they said occasionally there's teams of people that come through here that are suspended, and they actually are cutting the walls down so that they are cutting back on the possibility of rock slides or rock falls as people, of course, walking. So if you're going to do the walk, I suggest you take the shuttle bus to the top of the glen and walk down instead of walking up. There's a lot of steps. So these are horizontal rocks with the limestone and some shale making the chasms. And there's still, of course, water action taking place. There's the one bridge you walk over. Again, limestone and shale are soft rocks. Again, very easy for water erosion to alter the landscape. My wife and I went to Boston area for our honeymoon, and I took her to Purgatory. She'll tell you after 35 years of marriage, she's still in purgatory. But uh she's not right here. Anyway, so yeah, we went to Purgatory Chasm in Massachusetts. Uh and it's the same type of thing, except there's no organized trails. You just kind of get down in the bottom of the chasm and walk across the rock that was carried by glaciers, erratics, or maybe have fallen off the wall. So they're actually spread up and down throughout Massachusetts and New York State, these chasms. Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts. Hey, look at that. There's like a Tomboro structure, right? So Plymouth Rock, Maryland, Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts. And actually, this is an erratic carried in by the glaciers. And look what the Pilgrims did. They put 1620 on their rock. How about that? Did the Pilgrims really do that? No, I'm just pulling your leg, sort of thing. But if you go to Plymouth Rock to see the historical point, that's what you're looking at right there, folks. That's where this rock right here is located. That is Plymouth Rock. Another erratic brought down by the glaciers 10,000 years ago, made of granite. And this is an important part right here. There's no proof that the Pilgrims ever landed here. There is proof that they landed at Cape Cod. So if you've been to Plymouth Rock, hey, that's fine. You've been to Plymouth Rock. But again, no proof that the Pilgrims ever landed here. So anyway, check out the piece of granite. Coming to Virginia again. I gotta throw this in. This is one of my favorite spots in Virginia, heading to Natural Bridge. Where's the East Coast's youngest volcano? I know there's one guy in here because he visited there and sent me some pictures a few years ago. I remember that, Larry. Mole Hill. 47 million years ago. Very young volcano. It's on Route 33 west of Harrisonburg, Virginia. And if you're really alert, as you travel down Interstate 81, you get to Harrisonburg area. You go past James Madison University on both sides of you. The next exit south, Mount Crawford. When you get close to the Mount Crawford exit, or at the Mount Crawford exit, if you look to your right, you'll see Molehill sticking up. Today, it's actually a recreational, it's a bike recreational property. You can go mountain biking on it. I'm not sure if you can walk it or not. I haven't invested that far. When I actually was there before COVID, it was still private property at that point. I was trying to find a piece of the basalt, but I was only finding the surrounding limestone, which is what all this down here is. So I never got a piece of the rock from Molehill yet. But check it out sometime. You can drive out 33, and there's actually roads that kind of go around Molehill. All right, North Carolina, Aurora Fossil Museum. Woo! Great place to go if you're into shark teeth collecting and similar stuff as the Chesapeake Bay, the Calvert Cliffs area, except this material is a little bit older. At Aurora Fossil Museum, and there's actually a quarry that you can go and dig right here, see? And she got herself a nice shark tooth. Be prepared for some wet surroundings. So don't wear sneakers. Well, you can wear sneakers, but just be prepared not to have them looking real good when you're done. All right, going to move a little bit west in North Carolina. Route Interstate 40, for example, Statesville, place called Stony Point. And what's a Stony Point? It's a place called the Hidden Night Gems. If you've never been there, again, it's a pretty neat place to go and stay in a local motel or you can camp. And it's an emerald mine. If you spend enough time there, you can be lucky enough to find emeralds. That's right, you can find emeralds at Hidden Night. Oops. So this is the history of what Hidden Night is. Actually, Hidden Night is a real mineral. And this is actually from the Smithsonian. It's burl, but because it's so green, it's called emerald. So you can find it. This is what Hidden Night is about. And I said it's pretty easy digging along the way. Here's the Emerald Hollow Mine, and Hidden Night is the only emerald mine in the United States open to the public for prospecting. And this guy said, yes, you can find emeralds, rubies, sapphires, amethysts, citrine, the rare gemstone, Hidden Night, and much more. So yeah, there's a daily fee to dig, but you never know how lucky you might become. We're going to Pennsylvania, looks like, down in our neck of the woods. Oh, yeah. I had a request a little bit about the Susquehanna River. We've done a Susquehanna River program for you here before, at least once. And if you've not been to the River Hills State Park in York County, north of Wrightsville, this is their gem stop right here. Overlooking the Susquehanna River, there's Bruner's Island. And way out here are the cooling towers of 3 Mile Island National Park, as I call it. And this is the Shocks Mill Bridge going across the river, Railroad Bridge. So beautiful scenic view. And you can look also south and look downriver also. So a couple of things about the Susquehanna River I just want you to remember. The river is one of the steepest rivers in the world. particularly from Harrisburg south to Aberdeen to where it empties into the Chesapeake Bay. That's why everybody wants to build a dam on the Susquehanna River, because of the gradient is already so steep to make the speed. The river has done some incredible erosion. Here, Roxanne and I are in a very, very hard rock called diabase, an igneous rock that's very, very hard, very, very stubborn. And up here near 3 Mile Island, the river actually has created these potholes in one of the hardest rocks that we have in Pennsylvania. Took an enormous amount of power to make these potholes, and these are kind of small ones. There's ones that we could get into and actually disappear. And the one thing that I do want to remind you of is there's a theory, which I'm part of, that the Susquehanna River one time flowed the opposite direction, because the mountains were to our east at one time. 420 million years ago, we had a wreck with volcanic islands colliding to our east. No mountains to the west in central Pennsylvania. So the river would have been flowing opposite, like south to north or southeast to northwest. And eventually those mountains got eroded down. And when we had what we call the Alleghanian orogeny, where Africa and North America came together and the Appalachian Mountains were pushed up, the river reversed its direction to where it is today. That's a theory. We do know, we can proclaim, because the internet tells us that now, that the Susquehanna River is now the oldest river in the world. I think the internet says 350 million years old. So I'd like to see it go back to 420 to satisfy my thinking on a theory. Oh. So the Ice Age, during the glaciers, we've been talking a lot about glaciers, but here's the glacial map of Pennsylvania. This is where the southern extreme of the glaciers came. So again, I'm located down here in York County here, and some of you are in Perry County, and some of you are out this way. You were not affected by the glaciers, but the Susquehanna River was an outwash area of the river. It carried the meltwater of a mile-high wall of ice down the river, did incredible erosion, and we also can find what we call river terraces on either side of the river in York and Lancaster County down here in our part, where we can prove to you that the river was 200 feet higher than what it is today, because we found these water-worn cobbles in this case, Farmer's Field. That was a river terrace. Okay, and we had a request. Getting into our final request here now is that somebody apparently has been to the National Conservation Training Center, Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And there's the Potomac River. So we're high on the ridge where the USGS does, the United States Geologic Survey does a good bit of training here. I did find out they wanted to know the geology around the National Conservation Training Center. So simply put, we put our geological map programs to work. Here's Shepherdstown right here along the Potomac. Beautiful meandering of the Potomac going on for some reason through the belt of limestone. I see I didn't put an arrow in here. Dolomite is this brown right here, but we have limestone, dolomite. On the other side of the Potomac, nicely divided by the Potomac, we have a metamorphic rocks called phyllite, quartzite, a little piece of metabasalt, some lava flow from 550 or so millions of years ago. And then we have the Precambrian, which is very old stuff, metamorphic rocks, starting up right here and moving to the east. So all these rocks are what we call Cambrian in age, roughly, make it easy, 500 to, I'll say 480 to 510 million years old. And then we have the older stuff, the metabasalt, which is kind of getting related to our South Mountain, and of course the Precambrian metamorphics. So, but you're basically in all limestone when you're at the conservation center. Back to New York State, the Adirondacks. I gotta say, it's a beautiful place to go. If you like outdoor hiking and rafting and kayaking, tubing, uh, biking, So if you notice, the Adirondacks are kind of like circular in shape. That's because they are a dome structure. Remember Stone Mountain, Georgia being a dome? Well, here's another dome consisting of rock that's 1 to 1.1 billion, folks, years old. That rock is very, very ancient. And that was part of and you've heard me talk about it before, the supercontinent called Rodinia, when we were down at the South Pole back 1 billion years ago. So for your reference sake, Saratoga Springs, New York is right in here. The Geological Society of America met there, oh, again, probably 10, 12 years ago at the, maybe longer. I remember making that trip up there, right at the foothills of the Adirondacks Mountains. So the Adirondacks have 100 plus mountain peaks. Get this, 3,000 plus named lakes and ponds. And the highest point actually in New York, 5,344 feet, Mount Marcy, is within the Adirondacks. So it's a beautiful spot to go. The rock, as I said, is very, very ancient. Some of the oldest rocks you'll find in North America. Competitive to the one area that's coming up in my program here really soon. I did read that some geologists think that there's a hot spot underneath the Adirondacks, an active hot spot. Hot spot is, if you relate it to Hawaii, hot spot is the stationary column of magma in the mantle of the Earth, and the Earth's crust is moving across it, as in plate tectonics. And in the case of Hawaii, these volcanoes and islands are creeping up, are being started up because of that stationary plume of magma. So some geologists think that the hotspot is occurring under the Adirondacks because of the heat that's within the mantle under that old rock. So that's something for you to watch out for as we go on. Okay, we had this request for Duluth, Minnesota. So
Oh,
we
you were gonna say, how do you watch out?
we did venture out there to see Duluth, and what they're famous for. The Duluth complex is a intrusive igneous rock complex. And then we have two ranges coming off of that, known for a rock called taconite and chert together. There's Lake Superior, Duluth. So taconite, better known as banded iron formation. I do remember Steve Lindbergh when he gave us his program about their vacation out that way last year, I think it was. He did collect taconite. And it's a banded iron formation. It is over 1 billion years old. And it actually is mined for iron. It's not real pure in iron, like 30, it's like 40% to 50% iron, but it's still being removed from the earth. So that's what the Duluth, Minnesota area is famous for geologically. to Vermont, place called Smuggler's Notch State Park. And I tell you, this is the one that got my attention because I never heard of it. And Stowe for Vermont separates the Mount Mansfield, which is the highest point in the Green Mountains, with Sterling Ridge, which is the mountain range to the east. And I think the people that referred me to this have probably been there. I just want to read this little note for you that I printed off the internet about what Smuggler's Notch is. It is exactly what you're thinking, folks. It is. Okay, it's named for the smuggling that was prompted by the request of President Thomas Jefferson to prevent American involvement in the Napoleonic Wars. Okay, the United States Congress passed the Embargo Act of 1807, which prohibited American trade with Great Britain and Canada. So the British bypassed the embargo by importing products to Canada, and they were smuggling down mountain trails through Smuggler's Notch by Vermontians. So this created great hardship for locals, many of whom continued the illegal trade with Canada, carrying goods and herding livestock through the notch. Now, can you imagine taking livestock through there? Holy mackerel. Okay. But the geology of the notch made it well suited for smuggling as the area is remote and lands with numerous caves. Now, it's not so much natural caves, it's actually formed by rock that has fallen off the cliffs and has gone down the slope and created things like this. So there's a lot of places to hide their goods. By the War of 1812, the activity had slowed, but later on, Smuggler's Notch was used in the Underground Railroad, with fugitive slaves used the notch as an escape route to Canada. And actually, the route was improved to accommodate automobile traffic in 1922, thus providing a route for liquor to be brought in from Canada during the Prohibition years. So, Smuggler's Notch has quite a history to it. So, pretty darn cool. So, that's the end of our geology of our selected vacation spots on the
Jerry,
East
I have a
Coast.
question for you about it.
Yes, ma'am.
If you watch out for those what were they the earthquake things on that one slide, what could you do to prevent them? There's really, you just have to have them happen. So what would you do? Like grab your stuff and do whatever, or what would happen?
Yeah, pretty much do that.
What'd you say?
Just pretty much just let them happen.
Yeah, but then what's the point in watching out for them?
Well, just to be aware that you're in a earthquake prone area. And
And what, you have to tie down your stuff? Is that it?
no, just know your surroundings and feel your surroundings.
So there's nothing you can really do to stop them, right?
Nope. You just gotta kind of live with it.
Oh, okay. Because you were like, watch out for it. So, and what was that? The Hawaii thing? Volcano thing?
The volcano about the hotspots, yes.
And what are you watching out for there?
No, it's not gonna happen for a long time. It's the mantle, the crust is getting warmer because the magma might be getting closer to the surface, but it's not going to happen in the next couple of thousand years.
The
It's
magma's getting closer to the surface. So what's going to happen?
it's very deep. Oh, eventually, because it could create a volcanic activity.
Uh,
It's going to be in thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
wow.
So when you go to the Adirondacks, just be a little cautious about how hot the ground is.
True.
Just kidding. Any other questions? Thank
I
you,
enjoyed
Diana,
the
for the
program.
smuggler's notch.
Hang on.
All right. Well, as you let me read we are headed to the spit of Cape May next week. There you go. Then Watkins, wow, then you're going to Watkins Glen. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, we love hiking those gorges. Yeah. So,
Oh,
Mimi,
one,
I don't know if you walk uphill or downhill, but
one day, one way or another, it would be nice to hear the wedding bells ring somewhere,
for who?
places, for whoever's getting married or
Oh,
whoever's getting engaged or having an anniversary.
yeah, you can bring the bells.
So,
And of course, there's a lot of other vacation spots that we didn't talk about because of time and whatnot. But you know, if you go to your favorite, if you go to your vacation spot and you pick up a rock, bring it back, and we'll try to identify it for you. Or as we tell everybody in social media, install on your phone the Rock D app. We've had Rock D programs in here. People have used Rock D to get across the country.
Mhm.
mhm.
I was just going to say, Jerry, right before you said that any vacation can be turned into a geo vacation by using Rock D.
Yeah,
And it adds a whole nother element
yeah, it does.
to your travels.
That's right.
Yep, really nice.
It kind of makes your time go faster when you're driving down 95 and look on Rock D and you're going across a major fault. Like, wow, this is cool. I'm going across a fault
Yep.
right there.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, at Rockby, yep.
Or go to Florida and take a junker car and park it over a sinkhole, see if it disappears the next night, and then you get a new car right away. A quick story about the I just lost the name of the sinkhole in Gainesville. When my wife and I were there, actually, we walked in on a attempted suicide where a woman was distraught with her husband had just taken her daughter away and she took an overdose of drugs, and my wife being the minister that she is, she got the woman up walking around, and somebody else had already gone and called the ambulance. But
Hang up.
once the ambulance crew arrived, we kind of disappeared into the surroundings. So we often wonder how that worked out with for her. So sometimes these isolated spots like that can promote things that you don't want to walk into. But anyway, all right, it's been fun, and we're gonna do it again in 2 weeks from that from tonight, and gonna be talking about fossils in the state of Pennsylvania. So again, you folks that we haven't seen for a little bit, welcome. You want to go back and show see the video again, it will be on Jones Geo. Well, I'm sorry. You know what? My website is broken. That's right. And you can go to YouTube and watch it. But my website's going to have to get rebuilt. There's a serious problem that has happened. And our webmaster is going to be working on that probably in about 2 weeks. So don't go to Jones Geo because I don't think it will show you anything. But you'll be able to find it on YouTube. So, all right. Until June 18th. We'll see
Thank you. It
everybody.
was a lovely show. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I had fun. Yep. All right, guys. We'll see you.
Bye.